Over the past year, I've been collecting quite a few items in large F-scale. My brother, Tom, not to feel left out, has bought a few items in On3. Now, On3 is a little bit specialist in that no one really makes track for it, or barely anyone anyway. So at some point it's likely you're going to have to try making track yourself. Tom hasn't had anything to even test his trains on, even check that the locomotives work or anything. So I decided for his birthday I would get a plank of wood, get some old HO track, split it down the middle and re-gauge it from 16.5mm to 19mm, which is correct for On3. So these two lengths of track are flexible track by Pico, and they were just going to spare up in our parents' loft, where when we were little, with our dad, we built a model railway. And these two pieces have been spare since then, so they're probably about 25 years old. And so it's nice that they've actually got some use finally. So after a while of going at them with the pliers, I had them in two halves. And just taking a look here, you can see what 19mm gauge actually looks like. And it's really not much different. You can see the difference here with the normal HO, 16.5mm compared with 19mm. Makes all the difference. Now I was ready to fix the track down to the board. It was time to get these fiddly track pins out, which I haven't done for such a long time, and I forgot how fiddly they were, and I dropped them many times. Thankfully, I didn't hammer my fingers too many times. I spaced the pins quite roughly, just a few inches apart. I thought that if they needed extra fixing, I could just put in more pins in between, or just put down a bit of glue. With the first side done, it was now time to do the second side. With this side needing to be fixed very accurately, I just tapped the pins into the sleepers just enough so they would stand up by themselves, while I then went and reached my ruler and checked the gauge and put them into the right place. Yes, there are probably more suited tools for doing this, but this is just what I had to hand, and it did the job. Once I had 19mm, it was just a case of holding it down and whacking in the pin. Of course, a good slope of T is absolutely necessary between every one. And for each one it was just repeating the process of checking the gauge, hammering down the pin, then always checking the gauge again, just in case I went wrong. I think I only had to redo one of them, so it wasn't too bad. With the track now completely fixed down, I got some sandpaper and just rubbed over the wood just to soften the edges, and also got the track cleaner out and gave it a good rub down to clear off 25 years of grime. My original plan was to leave it like this, but it just looked so ugly I thought I had to do something with it, and I remembered that we probably had a couple of bags of scale ballast up with the old layout. So I grabbed those, grabbed some PVA glue, and I found some very gritty sand as well. So I thought, well, let's make it look scenic. To start with, I use this brush to put down most of the PVA glue, being careful not to get it onto the rails, and then use this tiny brush to push it into the small little gaps. As time went on, I quite quickly started just plastering the glue all over the place with the big brush, because I knew I was going to clean the track later on anyway. But with the glue down, I sprinkled down the sand and just poured over the ballast in between the rails. Now usually you'd probably want to brush down the ballast so that it sets in between the sleepers, but I'm doing this to cover the sleepers and hide the fact that they're actually broken, with gaps in between. So I just pushed them down gently with my finger just to clear them away from the rails, just enough to show that there are sleepers there, but I didn't want to push them down too much that would show the gap in between. And it looked pretty good. So I continued and did the rest. You'll notice I wasn't too neat about making a distinction between the ballast and the sand, because being out in the wild, the sand is going to get blown over the track, so having them blend across a little bit in some places made it look a bit more realistic. And the end result looked pretty good, but you'll see where I was quite liberal with the glue. Some of the stones are stuck up against the inside of the rail, so just to make sure they didn't get in the way of the flanges on the wheels, just took something sharp and just ran it along the inside of the rail, just clearing it out the way. I felt I needed to add something just at the end of the tracks. You'll see in the real world quite often some sleepers just left on the top side of the rails just to show that there's no more track beyond that point. So I found some modelling matchsticks, matchsticks with just without the striking head, and just used those as they happen to be just about the right size in scale to make sleepers. So just with a dab of glue, just put them in place. Possibly, if we're to do On3 track again in the future, maybe they could actually be used as sleepers themselves. So I did those at both ends and left it overnight to let the glue dry. Coming to check the next morning, as the garage was actually quite cold and a bit damp, the glue hadn't really dried, it was still quite tacky. And a couple of places it looked like this where the glue was thicker and the sand has sunken into the glue, and so when that properly dries it would look like a very wet appearance. So I just later on sprinkled some more sand over those, but I needed to shake away the loose anyway, so just gently tapped it on its side and actually not much came off, so it was all fixed pretty well. To make these matchsticks look a bit more realistic rather than the very pale pine colour, I found some wood stain. It's rosewood, which is not really the right colour, but it's just what I had. So I just needed something just to darken the colour a little bit. So with a little cup with a drop of water, drop just a dash of the wood stain in, and yeah, it's really not the right colour, but it's only been painted over lightly, so it'll do the job. So that's it, finished. And I took it outside just to see what it looked like in the daylight, and that's my large scale stuff in the background. And I brought it inside the house where it could dry properly in the warm, and completely by chance it was just the right length to sit on my entertainment cabinet. Just a shame it's not staying with me and it's going to my brother's. Otherwise it would have been quite nice to have some model trains on to look at while I'm watching videos of model trains. But after inspection, yeah, I was happy. So with the test track now carefully wrapped up, it was off to deliver to birthday boy. Actually, the length of this present was quite appropriate for what's going on in the world, because I could stand right back away from the door while ringing the doorbell. So there he is, thinking, what the hell is this? So I left him to it. Now Tom and his girlfriend, or fiance Vic, kindly sent me these videos so that we could see him opening it and trying it out.
Is it genuinely a piece of track? What the hell?
It's great that he didn't seem to know what to make of it to start with.
Is this On3?
Yes, Tom,
No,
it's
no
0
bloody
3.
way. Actually have some track. Oh. Wow. I need trains now.
So off he went to get some trains. I think at this point he was thinking it was just for display. So just seeing what it looked like.
Yay!
He was then passed the box with something else.
What's this? No way!
So I left him a power pack as well. Tom has 2 locomotives, both were bought second hand. So he first tried his K28, which didn't actually run, but we think it might be set up for DCC, so obviously it won't work with analog control. But that's what a test track's for. Next, you got his K27. After a flash of light and an excited clap, it worked. And I think he's happy. And that's it. So if you found this video at least mildly entertaining, please do the old YouTube cliches and like and comment and subscribe and anything you fancy. Just let me know there's some other people out there and I'm not just in this room talking to myself. And I'll see you soon with some more interesting videos. Cheers!